Masters, mistresses, the Doctor requires materials in order to maintain the TARDIS and ensure continued functionality. He similarly requires carbon-based comestibles to sustain his own biological functions and existence. Master would never say this, but he requires aid beyond that supplied by this unit in order to acquire these. To aid the Doctor in his various tasks and creations, this can be most effectively achieved via Patreon or Substack subscriptions, or through donations directly to PayPal. Or if you desire physical goods in return for your contributions, written accounts of my travels with the Doctor are also available on Amazon. Links are in the description below. Thank you, masters, mistresses.
Hi, Dr. Alex here, and welcome to one of my very occasional and very sporadic and also unscripted videos on music equipment. This time it is how to make a Fender Bass 6 on the cheap. Kinda. Well, for a start, it's not a Fender Bass 6, but it will hopefully be a 6-string bass with a tremolo by the time I've finished, and it will certainly be a hell of a lot cheaper than a Fender Bass 6. So, here's why I thought I would do it and what I'm going to do it with. I bought a Satellite guitar, which is a Japanese Taisco guitar made under somebody else's badge, the Satellite badge, for import to the UK, I think, or possibly the US and the UK. But anyway, it's a Taisco rebadged guitar, probably from the late 60s into the 70s. And I got it mostly because it has the Taisco trem system, which I really like. I've got it on my much nicer semi-acoustic guitar in the other room, and also I put it on an ES335 clone and made a much better tremolo than a horrible Bigsby trem. But anyway, that's the reason I bought it, and the guitar is right here. And it's kind of nice. I had to fix the trem a bit to get it to work, but does what it's supposed to do. But the guitar itself is a little bit cramped. It's not so much that the body is small. The body is small, way smaller than a Strat body would normally, for example. But the neck is very, very cramped. So it's just not quite... Needs tuning as well. It's just not very comfortable to play. So I was thinking about selling it on and just getting rid of it. And then I thought, why not make a Fender Bass 6, or at least something not a million miles away from Fender Bass 6, from this very guitar. Now, this guitar sent me back 90 quid, I think. That's £90 to people who are not familiar with the UK slang and lingo. And it's one of the most expensive guitars I've bought. Not the most expensive quite, but it's getting up there. But as anyone who's familiar with my work before will know, I tend to try not to spend too much on my equipment. So this was a little bit, 90 quid. Possibly the most expensive part of the project, but actually the other expensive part of the project is the other part you need, which is a 30-inch scale length neck to go on the thing. So this has got a really short scale, well, shorter than a Strat scale length neck on it currently. It's also kind of narrow, well, they're not too narrow, but it's mostly the frets get a bit close together. It's just not quite comfortable to play if you're used to playing a Strat. Now this is obviously a lot bigger. This is the other potentially expensive thing you may need to buy. Finding 30-inch scale length necks is not that cheap. Even if you go on eBay and go as cheap as you can through Chinese sources or wherever, this one was still over £50, I think. I need to say 50 quid again. You know what I mean. It was over £50 just for the neck. But that said, so we've now spent, 140 quid on guitar and neck to make a Fender Bass 6, which... yeah, I challenge anyone to find a Fender Bass 6 for 140 quid. Let's put it that way. Anyway, the project has yet to begin. I've got the neck now, and I have had the guitar for some time with a trem, because of course those who know a Bass 6 at all know that it has a trem system on it and is a 6-string bass. So yeah, that's where I intend to go with this. I will obviously be carrying on with this video after a jump cut because I'm going to have to do some work. This neck looks a little bit too wide to fit on here comfortably. I might need to either trim some of this down or possibly shave a bit off the neck to get it to fit, but I'll let you know all the grim details once I've got it together. Of course, this may completely fail, in which case it will never make a video in the first place, unless I decide to make it anyway as a massive, expensive blooper. Who knows? Might well get something out of this. Anyway, I will be back shortly with some work done. Welcome back, and here we have an almost complete bass 6. There are a couple of things I'd want to do with this just to make it a little bit better, but basically it's there, it's working, it's doing what it's supposed to do. I just want to do a couple of tweaks with it to make it a little better. The only thing I want to do is basically the intonation is just slightly off, and I can't get the bridge any further back, but I have about a centimetre, maybe a centimetre and a half of play at the back of the tremolo system, so I can move that back by maybe about half a centimetre, then I can make the bridge move that far back as well, and that should fix the final bit of intonation. I'll show you the intonation when I demo it briefly later, but first let's talk through what I did to get this to be a bass 6 from what was a 6-string lead guitar, albeit a very small one, into what now is my fake pretend Fender bass 6, not a Fender, obviously. Obviously, the first thing I had to do with the satellite was de-string it and then take the neck off. Fairly obvious, really. Once the neck was off, I was hoping, or actually while I was taking the neck off, I noticed that there was a problem already, potentially. I wanted to reuse the tuners from the satellite, at least until I get some proper bass tuners, and so I thought that the satellite had individual tuners like a Strat or even a P-Bass would have, but no, the satellite's tuners were on a rail, all on one fixed strip. And I thought, well, that's useless, I can't use them then, I'm going to have to wait until I get some bass tuners. But by some miracle, the tuning pegs lined up with the holes on the new 30-inch scale length bass neck, so I could just about use the rail. There was about a millimetre difference, but if you lined it up carefully, you could get all 6 of them through the holes, and even get the surrounds, the cowls, the tuning pegs around them too. So yeah, it worked perfectly. So that's one less expense. I have 6 tuners on there straight off the satellite onto the new bass 6. The next thing I thought I'd have trouble with is getting the bass 6 neck, the 30-inch scale length neck, to fit into the hole on the satellite left by the missing neck that I just removed. And it didn't quite fit, but I had to sand a minimal amount off the edge to get it to fit into the channel left by the missing neck. I mean, so much so that you can't even notice that I've sanded it. I did sand it down, I had to, but you'd be challenging anyone to see where that sanding occurred. It was so minimal, the sanding, that had to be taken off in order to get it to fit. Now, although I said I will have to still perfect the intonation and have to shift the tremolo and the bridge at some point, I did move the bridge to be as ideally placed as possible, get the best intonation I could out of it, which means right up against the tremolo, as it turns out, at least the tremolo plate. To get this right, I left the E strings, the top and bottom E strings, in place, or sorry, I strung the top and bottom E strings back on, and then shifted the bridge until I got the intonation as good as it could get. Then I marked around where the bridge was, took it off, and was able to take the bridge rail where the strings go over off the bridge, and then screw the bridge into where I'd drawn around it, so it lined up perfectly. While fiddling around with it, I also took the opportunity to move the strap post from the back of the guitar to the end of the topmost sticky out bit. So again, it's attached more like a Strat or a P-Bass attachment point than how it was. Also helps lift the now longer neck, stops from drooping down all the time. So yeah, I did that because it just seemed sensible, and it does look a bit better as well. I did file out the grooves on the rail from the bridge, so it had more room for the bass strings to fit in, because they are thicker than normal strings. And I did the same with the nut, so the nut had thicker channels for the strings to sit in. I also borrowed the truss rod nut cover from the original neck and put it on the new neck because it looks nice and it covers the truss rod hole that you adjust via. After I strung the guitar entirely using the bass 6 strings I bought, again, one of the more expensive things you'll have to buy is about 17 quid for a set of strings. That's a lot more expensive than a lead set of strings, but anyway, 17 quid for my bass 6 set of strings. So they're real bass 6 strings, they're the right gauges and everything. It wasn't sitting very nice. It was way too high in action, even for a bass guitar. It was too high. So this is where the most difficult part came in. I had to put shims in, shift things around until I could get the neck at the right angle and height. I had to fiddle with the bridge on this quite a bit, and I took the height adjusters on and off a couple of times until it's now running without any height adjusters, but it actually now sits at the right height relative to the neck. But that led to the best setup I could achieve. There were some voids left by my work. There's a void behind the neck, between the neck and the body, which I've stuffed some black foam in, so it kind of makes the hole look invisible, or the gap look invisible. Similarly, there was a bit of a gap between the neck and the, not much, but a little gap between the neck and the body of the guitar on the underside. Again, a bit of black foam in there, and you'd hardly know it was there at all. But that's it. The guitar is there and set up. This is definitely a bass guitar. Some of the advertising spiel for this guitar, the bass 6, when it first came out from Fender, was saying, it can be played like a lead guitar or a bass guitar. Well, yeah, it's got 6 strings, but this is definitely a bass guitar. If, like me, you're using 8s or a light set of strings, I use 8s, on your lead guitar, this is particularly heavy. Even compared to the P bass, this feels heavy, although the strings are actually thinner. The tension is there. You can feel it. It does not play like a lead. But anyway, I'll give a quick demo. Not an ideal setup for the demo. I've got it plugged into my Marlin Reverb 50 lead amplifier over there, humming away, because obviously, apparently I create a lot of hum. If I touch the guitar, I can remove some of that hum. I am a massive antenna, apparently. Anyway, I'll do a quick demo to show how it works, but it's not going to be a full demo. I will show how the intonation's not quite on. I'll use both pickups. I'm not going to twiddle with it too much or spend too much time with this, just so you can see it's actually working. I might make a follow-up video if and when I adjust the intonation to be perfect. But anyway, here's a quick demo. Cannot be played like a lead, but it's so tempting because it is 6 strings on here. You just want to play it like a lead. And plus, I'm a lead guitarist anyway, so my temptations are strong. But it does play quite well. So the tremolo works, but it's very subtle because moving this a long way does not very much tone change. It does do it, but it doesn't change it much. Then again, you're not going to be dive bombing on a bass anyway. That is on the, which one's it on? It's on the bridge pickup. There's the neck pickup. I've got the tone turned up. Yeah, I've got the tone turned right up at the moment, apparently. The volume down quite, about mid. Yeah. The temptation to play it like a lead is strong, that is true. Oh yeah, intonation. So, you can hear that off. But not massively. So, if I move this back a little way, it should solve that problem. as I say, it's usable now. Ugh. I think that'll do. Anyway, try this at your own risk. You've seen how I've done it, and you've seen the final result. It is basically a Fender Bass 6, but it's not a Fender. It's a shame the headstock is different. The original Satellite's headstock was actually closer to the headstock of a Fender Bass 6, but I can't chop the headstocks off and swap them, so yeah, gonna have to live with this headstock, or I'm gonna have to live with it, I should say. But yeah, this is a working bass guitar, and I might well use this in preference to my P bass, although I do like the P bass, and it is a nice one to play. And so yeah, that's all I've got to say. I hope you enjoyed this weird one-off music video, and I hope you'll join me for whatever the next weird video is. And until then, take care.